She agreed to babysit on Mother's Day without asking me and then called me childish for walking out. The kids are already on their way over. The concert tickets are already bought. And I am already walking out the door. That is the moment this whole thing came to a head, and honestly, it had been a long time coming. So let me take you back to where this actually started, because the babysitting thing is just the final straw in a much longer story. Our family had been friends with another couple for about 3 years at that point. Their daughters were 8 and 5, our son was 8, the kids all got along, and over the years we had settled into this comfortable rhythm of swapping babysitting duties whenever someone needed a night off. Date nights, errands, whatever. It was one of those casual arrangements that just works when everyone is on the same page. And for a while, it genuinely did work. Nobody was keeping score too aggressively, nobody felt taken advantage of, and it was nice to have that kind of support system in place. There is something genuinely warm about knowing another family has your back, that you can fire off a text on a Thursday afternoon and have your kid covered by Friday evening without a production being made of it. That is how it is supposed to go with arrangements like this. Then came the text. The other husband reached out to our husband asking if we could watch their 2 girls on Saturday evening because he wanted to surprise his wife with concert tickets for Mother's Day weekend. Now on the surface that sounds sweet, a husband doing something thoughtful for the mother of his children. But let us slow down and look at what was actually being requested here. Not just a regular Saturday evening babysit either. The concert would run late. We are talking about potentially not getting the kids back until 2 or 3 in the morning. That means she would be responsible for 2 additional children from sometime in the evening all the way through the middle of the night, shepherding them through the exhausted and unpredictable hours that follow midnight, with no husband present to share the load. That is not a favor. That is an entire overnight commitment wearing a different costume. Now here is where things immediately go sideways, and I want you to pay close attention to this part because it matters. Our husband did not say yes right away. He said probably, told his friend he would check with his wife first, and then called her. So far so decent, right? He asked what they were doing Saturday. She said nothing. She was not consulting a packed calendar. She was simply telling him that she had no specific plans locked in, the way most people answer that question on a random midweek phone call without suspecting it is about to be used against them. And apparently, in his mind, nothing is the same as yes. He did not call her back and say, "Hey, our friends need a sitter and it would go late, are you comfortable with that?" He did not give her the chance to weigh in on what the evening would actually look like. He hung up, called the friend back, confirmed the babysitting, and then called her again to explain what he had just agreed to. On her behalf. Without her input. Nothing apparently means full availability in his world, no asterisks attached, no follow-up questions needed. When she found out the full picture, she said something completely reasonable. She said that watching additional children during Mother's Day weekend was not exactly how she pictured spending her time. That is not a tantrum. That is not unreasonable. That is a woman expressing a preference about how she wants to spend one of the only weekends in the entire year that is supposed to be about her. And she was not even asking to scrap the arrangement entirely. She was not demanding he call his friend back and cancel. She was simply naming the fact that this was not what she would have chosen, and that naming it felt necessary, because nobody had thought to ask her in the first place. His response was to immediately get annoyed and tell her it did not matter because she had nothing planned, and that she was going to be around kids anyway since they already had their son's birthday party earlier that day. Let that sink in for a second. He actually used the birthday party as justification. Like she had already been exposed to the concept of children that day, so what was the big deal about a few more until 3 in the morning? Like the energy you spend celebrating your own child and the energy you spend managing someone else's children late at night are the same resource being drawn from the same well. There is also something revealing about the fact that he brought it up at all. He was not trying to understand her objection. He was building a case against it, hunting for any detail that might make her refusal look unreasonable. The birthday party was convenient because it made her seem like she had already agreed to a full day of child-related activity, so what was a few more hours? That is not empathy. That is not logic. That is someone who has already decided the answer and is now just searching for ammunition. And then he said it. Mother's Day is technically Sunday anyway, so it should not matter that much. And then, just to make sure the point really landed, he added that it was just a day. Oh, wow. He really said that. Because here is the context that makes that comment so much worse than it already sounds on the surface. This woman does essentially everything in that household. She cooks. She cleans. She handles most of the parenting for their son and their dog. She manages the invisible mental load of keeping a household running, the appointments and the groceries and the knowing when things are running low before they run out entirely. She does all of this while working full-time. And she mentioned that she does not even usually get anything for Christmas or her birthday, and she has never made a big deal about it. She has quietly absorbed those disappointments and kept going because that is what she does. You can almost picture it, the moment on Christmas morning when she registers the absence and then smooths her face and moves on, because making it into something would only create conflict. Mother's Day was the one day she allowed herself to hope for even a small gesture of appreciation. Just one day. And her husband looked at that and said it was just a day. That is not a slip of the tongue. That is someone who has been getting away with not showing up for a long time and has started to believe that is normal. Now let us talk about what babysitting actually looks like in this household, because it is not what the word implies when you say it out loud. When they babysit other kids, she is the one doing all of it. She entertains the children, makes the food, mediates arguments, organizes activities, keeps everyone alive and happy. She is the one who notices when a child is getting overstimulated and quietly redirects them before things escalate. She is the one refilling cups, remembering who does not eat cheese, and talking a tired 5-year-old down from a meltdown at 11 at night. Meanwhile, her husband walks into the media room, closes the door, and plays video games because, and I want you to really absorb this excuse, he does not know how to help. He does not know how to help. This man is in his 30s. He has a child. He has chosen, repeatedly and deliberately, to not figure out how to help, and he has somehow communicated this so convincingly that it has become accepted as a fixed trait rather than a choice. So when he says we can babysit, what he actually means is she can babysit while he retreats to his games. He is not agreeing on behalf of both of them. He is volunteering her time and energy without her consent and calling it a mutual decision. There is a word for that, and it is not partnership. What makes this particularly frustrating is that he knows the dynamic. He has lived it repeatedly. He knows that when those girls come over, he is going to close that door. He knew it when he picked up the phone to call his friend back. He volunteered her labor with full awareness that it was hers to give, not his. And yet he framed the whole thing as if they were a team making a team decision. There is also the small but genuinely important detail about the specific children involved here. Their son has ADHD. The older of the two girls also has ADHD. The last time they watched the girls, both kids were bouncing off the walls until well past 1 in the morning. She had a headache for the entire following day, the kind that sits behind your eyes and makes light feel like an insult. Their daughter was doing somersaults on the couch while most adults were already asleep. If you have ever tried to wind down a child with ADHD past midnight, you know that it is not a matter of dimming the lights and putting on soft music. It requires constant presence, calm redirection, and a seemingly bottomless reservoir of patience that does not refill just because you tell yourself to be patient. This is not a quiet movie night with 2 easy kids. This is a full sensory experience that requires sustained energy, patience, and active management from start to finish. And she is being asked to do that alone, in the middle of the night before the one day a year that is supposed to be hers. She told him she did not want to do it. He told her he had already said yes and the tickets were purchased. He presented this as though the purchase of those tickets had locked her into a legal obligation, as though her objection was not just inconvenient but irrational. He was essentially telling her that the moment he made a unilateral decision, her ability to have a different opinion expired. And that is when she made the decision that apparently broke his brain. She told him fine, she would not stop the babysitting from happening, but when the girls arrived she would be leaving. She sat with it, thought it through, and came up with something elegant in its simplicity. She bought herself a ticket to the new Mortal Kombat movie. She made her own plan. She solved the problem on her own terms, and she did it without asking for his permission, which was apparently the part he found most threatening. He called her childish. He said she was throwing a tantrum. He told her she needed to help him watch the kids, as if the entire situation was not something he had created unilaterally and dropped in her lap. Think about what it takes to respond that way. She did not yell. She did not threaten the friendship. She found a solution that let the babysitting happen while protecting her own evening, and he responded by reaching straight for the language of dismissal. Childish. Tantrum. These are words people use when they want to avoid engaging with the actual content of what someone said. When you call someone childish, you do not have to address whether their point is valid. You just reframe their reaction as the problem and walk away feeling justified. That is exactly what he did here. The absolute nerve of this man. So now let us get to the verdict, because I have some very clear thoughts about this and I am not going to soften them. She is not the problem here. Not even close. What happened in this situation is that her husband made a commitment using her time, her energy, and her emotional bandwidth without asking her permission, and when she objected, he tried to gaslight her into thinking the objection itself was the bad behavior. The audacity of calling someone childish for refusing to participate in a plan they never agreed to is honestly breathtaking. She did not blow up the friendship. She did not cancel the babysitting. She did not call the other couple and tell them everything that had gone wrong behind the scenes. She simply said that if he made this decision without her, then he could handle the consequences without her. She found the most measured, least destructive way to hold a boundary while still letting the original commitment stand. That is not a tantrum. That is a completely logical and proportionate response. The deeper issue here is not even about one babysitting arrangement. It is about a pattern. It is about a man who has structured his home life so that all the labor flows in one direction and the decision-making flows in the other. He decides what they will do. She does the work of doing it. And when she tries to set a boundary around that, he frames her resistance as the problem rather than examining the system that made it necessary. He does not ask himself why she is objecting. He does not sit with the possibility that she might have a point. He skips straight to the performance of being wronged. The fact that she rarely gets recognized for birthdays or Christmas and has never pushed back tells you how long this has been building. She has been absorbing this for a long time. This was just the moment it finally overflowed. And the Mother's Day angle matters. It really does. The person telling her that Mother's Day is just a day is the same person who has coasted on her labor all year while contributing a closed media room door and a game controller. If anyone in that house has earned the right to define what Mother's Day means, it is her. She gets one day. One day in 365 where the expectation is simply that someone acknowledges her. She asked for that day to not include managing other people's children alone until 3 in the morning. That is the smallest possible request. The fact that he could not honor it, and then had the additional gall to call her childish for having a feeling about it, says everything you need to know about where his priorities actually sit. She bought herself a movie ticket. Good for her. She should enjoy every single minute of it. My brother is furious I got my license before his wife, and honestly I cannot even be upset about it. She is 21 years old and her brother is furious that she got her driver's license before his wife. Read that again. She is furious that she got her driver's license before his wife. That is the whole conflict. And somehow it gets even wilder from there. Here is how it started. She needed driving lessons and did not have enough money to fund them herself, so she asked her mom for help. Reasonable. She also told her brother about it because they are family and she was just sharing her plans, the kind of casual life update you give people you trust. Simple enough. But her brother heard that and immediately proposed a group arrangement. His idea was that she and his wife should take their driving lessons together, as a unit, on the same schedule, moving through every stage side by side. She agreed, even though she was not totally comfortable with it from the very beginning. She does not have a close relationship with her sister-in-law. They are not the kind of women who call each other just to talk or who naturally gravitate towards spending time together. And beyond that specific relationship, she is genuinely the kind of person who strongly prefers doing things on her own, learning at her own pace, without having to calibrate her progress to someone else's comfort level. She said yes anyway because she was trying to be agreeable and keep the peace, which is what younger siblings in controlling family dynamics often do, smile and absorb and hope things work out. They started with theory lessons. Both women passed. Good start. Then they moved into the beginner stage at the driving school, sitting through the early sessions, getting their feel for the car, learning the fundamentals side by side the way her brother had envisioned. A few weeks in, the second test came up. This test was focused on parking. She got her test date first because she was ready. She had put in the work, absorbed the instruction, and the school moved her forward accordingly. Her sister-in-law did not get a date yet because the instructor, the actual trained professional who evaluates these things for a living and has no personal stake in anyone's family drama, determined she needed more practice before being tested. That is not a personal attack on her sister-in-law. That is not favoritism or sabotage or some kind of conspiracy. That is literally just how driving schools work. Everyone moves at the pace they are actually ready for. She took her parking test and passed. She walked away from that test feeling genuinely proud, the way you feel when you do something hard and it pays off. She told her family because good news is meant to be shared. And then her brother, without missing a beat, immediately told her to slow down and wait for his wife to catch up before moving on to the next stage. She pushed back. She was not rude about it, but she was honest. She explained that the on-road lessons needed to happen soon and that the weather was already getting very hot. They were not talking about a mild inconvenience either, the kind of thing you push through with some water and a good attitude. She mentioned temperatures that could reach 50 degrees Celsius outside. If you have never stood in that kind of heat, you need to understand what that actually means for your body. That is air that feels like it is pressing down on you. That is asphalt that radiates heat upward through your shoes. That is the kind of temperature where sitting in a poorly ventilated car while learning to navigate traffic stops being a scheduling preference and starts being a genuine health concern. Sorry but no, absolutely not. 50 degrees is a medical emergency in shoes. She booked lessons with her new on-road instructor and moved forward without waiting. She made that decision clearly and deliberately, knowing her brother would not like it, and did it anyway because it was the right call for her own safety and her own progress. Her brother found out and did not even come to her directly to discuss it like an adult. He called their mom instead, offloading his frustration to someone else and expecting her to be the one to pump the brakes. Their mom heard the full situation, looked at what was actually happening, and shrugged. She said it was fine for her to keep going because it was just about getting a license. Which, again, is correct. It is just a license. It belongs to her. It affects her life. It has nothing to do with anyone else's timeline. Then came the parking test for her sister-in-law. She took it. She failed. And look, failing a driving test is not a moral failing. It happens to a lot of people, often very capable people, and normally there would be nothing to even discuss about it because it would simply mean more practice and another attempt. But the reason it becomes relevant here is because of how her brother responded to it. He was still angry with his younger sister. Not focused on comforting his wife after a disappointing day. not thinking practically about what additional practice she might need or how to encourage her going into the next attempt. He was upset with his 21-year-old sister for having the audacity to pass her own driving test on her own timeline and move forward with her own lessons without his approval. That is a wild place to land emotionally, and it tells you a lot about what is actually going on here. Because let us be very honest about what this brother actually wanted from this situation. He did not propose the joint lessons because he thought it would be convenient or fun or because he had some sweet vision of the two women in his life bonding over parallel parking. He proposed them because it gave him a mechanism to control his younger sister's pace under the guise of family solidarity. As long as she and his wife were doing everything together, moving through every stage in lockstep, he could slow her down, keep her within reach, make sure she was not moving faster or achieving more independently than what fit his vision of how things should go. The joint arrangement was never about support. It was about a leash with a polite name on it. The moment she stepped outside that arrangement and trusted her own judgment over his preference, it became a problem. Not because she did anything wrong. Not because she hurt anyone. Because she proved she did not need his permission to move forward in her own life. And she called it out directly. She described her brother as conservative and very into the cultural idea that women should be controlled and cannot be independent. She said she loves freedom, loves doing things alone, and wants to live her life as an independent woman. She was not vague about it and she was not apologetic about it either. That tension is not incidental to this story. It is the entire story. The driver's license is just the battlefield, a small and concrete thing that made the larger conflict visible. The actual fight is about whether she gets to make decisions about her own life, on her own schedule, for her own reasons, or whether her older brother gets veto power over her pace and her choices simply because he is older and male and culturally believes that gives him authority over her. He is never going to be okay with who she is. And she should stop trying to make him okay with it. Now for the verdict. And I want to be very direct here because this situation deserves clarity. She did nothing wrong. Not a single thing. She agreed to try the joint lesson arrangement even though she did not fully want to, which was already a generous concession. She passed every test she was ready for. She made a reasonable and genuinely safety-conscious decision to move forward when the weather became a legitimate concern for her physical well-being. She did not sabotage her sister-in-law, she did not steal her test slot, she did not do anything that touched the other woman's ability to pass or fail on her own merits. The only thing she did was refuse to put her own progress on hold to accommodate someone else's slower timeline, which is her absolute right when it comes to her own education and her own life. The brother's reaction reveals the real problem, and it is not about driving at all. A man who genuinely supports his sister would have been proud of her for passing. A man who genuinely supports his wife would have focused on encouraging her after her setback rather than blaming a third party for existing and moving forward. Instead, he channeled his frustration entirely toward the wrong person because she is the one who did not fall in line with his expectations. That is controlling behavior dressed up as cultural tradition, and it does not deserve respect just because it comes with a label. She is 21. She is building her independence, learning to drive, making her own choices, and living her life exactly as she should be at this age. The fact that her brother finds that threatening says a great deal more about him than it does about her. She does not owe him obedience. She does not owe him a slower version of herself to make him more comfortable. She passed her test. She earned her license. And the only thing she should feel about that is proud. Drop a comment below and tell me which story had you more fired up, because honestly both of these had me talking to my screen. If you are new here, hit that like button and subscribe, it genuinely helps more than you know.